laws that can greatly impact people's lives in a negative way. That's crazy. Can't have that. We can't have that, and we need to agree as human beings, particularly now, because of the age that we live in and the access to information that we enjoy. We're aware of this acutely. It's obvious. It's right in front of our faces, and it's one of the many reasons why I think you should be exonerated. Why I think you should be pardoned. I mean, you've exposed this and you've opened people's eyes to this. The exponential increase in people's understanding and appreciation for that, based on your work and what the Guardian put out and how you expose all that, it's changed the conversation. It's changed, and it needs to be changed, and the repercussions needs to be changed as well.
Well, thank you. I guess there's not much more to say than that, but I hope one day I will be able to come back.
If I want to see you in real life, man, I want to give you a hug.
I'll come on the show and be in the same room for once.
30 seconds until
well, hopefully COVID will be gone then. Well, I'll test you first. We'll test each other first.
Yeah.
But listen, I said it before. I really do believe this. I think you're a hero, and I think that what you've done, history will be kind to you. You know, they will look back on what has been done to you, and I think our government is on the wrong side of history. I really do believe that. And I think if people really did know the facts, particularly the way you explained it earlier about how the information was distributed and the way it was handled ethically and morally, you did the best you possibly could have done with that situation. And I think it's an incredibly bold move that you've done, and I feel like the time has come. I really do, and I hope Trump listens to this. I really do. I hope he listens to this, and I hope he understands also what a political piece it would be. I mean, this is a massive. If he pardoned you, I think it would be a massively positive move for his own, the way the United States citizens view him.
Well, I hope what we see under this administration and the other, the stronger for is ending the war on explosives. Because as much as I would like to go, and as much as I would like to see recognition from the system, the only thing we can do is tell the truth, and it should not be the truth. It's not about me, it's about what happens to all of us, what happens to the system, and how we restore it. Or rather realize the ideal of a country that we've always told we have. But in reality, we have never been as good as what we dreamed. But we're getting closer. And the way we do that is by admitting where we were wrong and doing better. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for being on, man. Those words and that mentality are what make you a hero, and your actions. I appreciate you very much, man.
Thanks so much.
You too, my friend. Take care.
Train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
Douglas, how are you?
Great to be with you again, Joe. How are you?
Great to be with you as well. And we were talking about you potentially being able to come to America, hopefully sometime.
That's right, I'm hoping to. I'm hoping to. It would be nice to be with you at the end of time.
Well, I've escaped to Texas, so I think I'll avoid the end times for at least a couple of months. I think we'll know
what it might have bought you.
I think it's already happening in California. I mean, this is, if it keeps burning the way it's burning, what's going to be left? Some friends of ours sent photos from Mammoth, California, up in the mountains. It is a hellscape. It's a terrifying vision. It's just everything is on fire. It's so bizarre.
And it's a combination of events.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. It's like just seeing a civilization being hit by plague, by fires, by pestilence, by politicians.
Yeah. If we were in
we'd be expecting the sun not to come up tomorrow. Right.
We'd be expecting demons to rise out of the fire, ride horses with searing eyes.
And then we'd be trying to work out which of our friends were the demons and slaying them for no reason.
Right, with the Salem witch trials. Yeah, it's at Los Angeles, which I was telling you that I fled. I really never thought too much about the government there. I never thought too much about who the mayor is or who the governor is. But my God, does that matter?
Yeah. I just saw the mayor of Portland has done another cracking one in the last 24 hours. I think he's sort of there's some move to have even less policing.
He's hilarious because he is the most progressive mayor in the country. And they're like, fuck you, not good enough, resign, no cops, no laws, no rules. It's
I saw. See, they came to his house.
Yeah,
and
they lit his locks on fire.
Yeah, that didn't persuade him that it was a problem.
He's like, they mean the right thing. They're anti-fascists. How could they be wrong?
That's one of the other plagues.
It's just amazing that name is still being used by people. There's some people, particularly like hardcore left-wing sites, that still call them anti-fascists. Instead of Antifa, they're calling them anti-fascists, which is like an obvious move to distort what they've done and what they stand for and what happened in Seattle and what's happened for over 100 days in Portland.
Well, it all matters, doesn't it? The language matters, and everyone's been caught on the back foot by it, because a huge number of people have clearly been persuaded that they are what they pretended they were. I suppose people are falling away bit by bit from believing that the anti-fascists are actually anti-fascist, but they've clearly fooled a lot of people. It's been a clever move on their part, calling themselves this. If they'd just called themselves fascists, they might have, everyone else might have got there a little faster, but they were quite clever on the name.
Yeah, because if you look at what they're doing, in fact, what they're trying to do is get people to comply. They're actually using fascist tactics, getting people to use their language and comply, and they're trying to literally get rid of the current police and the current authorities. They're trying to do it by force.
The best example of the fact they're not even trying to disguise it is that they're trying to make everyone raise their arm. That used to be a giveaway.
Yeah, the thing that they did in Washington D.C. where I'm continuing to sound like every day I look at the news for a hope, like a glimmer of light, like some reason to pop through, and it's not coming. Every day it gets more and more bonkers. There's people outside, a bunch of white people by the way, screaming at this lady who has marched for Black Lives Matter multiple times, telling her she must raise her fist in compliance.
She's my hero. She's my glimmer.
Yeah.
She really is. Quite often in sort of good times in America, people say things like, where are the heroic people? They sort of forget that heroic people come up because bad things occur. And heroism, which they didn't know was there, comes out. I think that woman's a very good example of that. She probably didn't know she had the heroic instinct to make her not go along with the mob, and she just one evening in her own spare time after dinner proves this incredibly heroic trait, which is no, I won't go along with you. You can't tell me what you do. I won't raise my fist. I won't kneel. I won't dance. There's the glimmer of light. And
she was really, she's in a beautiful position, being that she has marched for Black Lives Matter. She does believe in the cause of stopping police brutality against people of color. She believes in all those things. But she's like, that's not what this is. This is a bunch of thugs bullying me into compliance. And it's a bizarre, disgusting, natural human instinct to try to get people to bend to your will. And that's what all those idiots were doing. They're surrounding her with this arbitrary gesture, raise your fist, as if that helps anything.
Also, didn't you feel, people are too generous to the people who go along with this, but when I saw the footage of the people in DC restaurants who did go along with that, sitting having a quiet dinner with their girlfriend and Chinese people come in and they sort of do agree to raise their fist. And you could see some of them looking a little nervous when chanting started to become "fuck the police." You know, like, oh, not sure where that went. But no, I feel a sort of contempt for those people, because that is also the problem. The problem is these people who are willing to go along with the crowds and be told by the crowd what to do. Instead of standing up, which they should do, and saying, "Excuse me, I'm trying to have a dinner with my girlfriend here." Fuck you. Surely.
I agree with you, but I think those people are just in fear of literally their safety and possibly their life. It seems beaten up, stormed. I'm sure you saw the one guy that pulled out of the car and got ran up behind him, kicked him in the head and knocked him unconscious.
Sure.
They're doing this for people that have done nothing wrong, for no reason.
Absolutely.
Just mob mentality.
But you know as well as I do, if in a restaurant in Washington DC and a beggar comes along and disturbs the clientele, you know, the restaurant staff will move the beggar along. An ugly sign, an ugly, division that exists. But if a mob comes into the restaurant staff don't do anything either. I mean, everyone is in fear of these mobs. And at some point that has to stop. At some point people have to say individually, we're not going along with that. And you can't intimidate us. You just can't intimidate us.
So that's what's scary about these things happening in places that have open carry for firearms. And obviously, Kenosha, when that 17-year-old kid showed up with a gun, and accidentally shot the kid. This is a really scary thing. One way or the other. My fear is that after the election, tips the first way possible. I don't see a positive resolution, left or right. I think if Biden wins, people will be furious. If Trump wins,
well, I've always loved your country, and I've spent quite a lot of time in it. And but I do have to say, watching it at the moment, this is all the basis for civil war.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know that, but I think a lot of people haven't quite realized this yet. This is all. My country went through this 400 years ago. A fundamental debate over the nature of our state and our government. And it seems to me you have a fundamental disagreement like that going on there now. A portion of the country doesn't believe in the founding principles, and another one holds them to be absolutely holy. I don't see how you reconcile them.
I agree with you. And my friend Tim Pool was talking about this over a year ago. I see this country as a civil war. That's a bit hyperbolic. That's kind of good. I thought he was just being silly. Oh, he'll be fine. This is pre-COVID. This is pre. I think COVID has ramped up everything considerably because everyone's so nervous. People out of work. There's so many people that have the time to do these things, to show up in front of the mayor's office or the mayor's house and light it on fire and boil it, because they don't have jobs, there's nowhere to go to.
Yeah.
And there's also no hope. And as they see the traditional structure, the economic structure, the political structure, as they're making it gets really cool. They continue to make like Taz, Seattle. It seemed like almost a little bit of a test run. And they did a Mad Max style takeover of 6 blocks in Seattle and held it for a considerable amount of time with the compliance of the mayor, who called it the summer of love.
I know. I saw a video of that of what happened after Chad. There were zombie-like people lying around on the grass. Everything seemed to be covered in urine, and there weren't any statues of you. There were a hell of a lot of holidays, and everything had graffiti over it. And I thought people should realise this is what you inherit. You'll inherit rubble. You'll inherit piss-stained rubble. And I'm not sure how many people have got that lesson yet.
Well, they should read your book. The Madness of Crowds is excellent. It really is. It's a very good book. And, you wrote that book before the shit was but it's eerily accurate in many ways. Talking about the problems and there's so much of what you were saying in that book that's used as like a guide to what's happening today.
Yeah. That's what I hoped. I mean, I did it a year ago. I've updated it now. And
what did you update?
Well, basically, because now it's out this month, is that basically I thought something very interesting happened through the COVID era, which was that at the beginning of it, I thought, like we all thought, okay, this is a plague, like a similar plague, we're all going to lose massive numbers of our loved ones, and if that's the case, at least at these end times, the social justice warriors will pipe down. It was my one consolation, was I thought, at least we won't have to deal with them so much, because if everyone's got real problems, if everyone's got real complaints, then microaggressions start to seem less important than they have done in recent years. So that was my assumption at the beginning, was if the plague was what it seemed at first, then we'd hear less from these people. And then my impression was that as COVID went on, something very interesting happened, which was that our tolerance for the social justice activists diminished. I mean, there were little things like little bits of light, like Sam Smith, from his mansion, post a photo of him, sort of crying, ooh, sad, he's lonely. And normally that would be, oh, Sam Smith, they is feeling bad, and so on. And there was just total we don't care. We don't care. Sam Smith is a brilliant. I'm so pleased you don't know of him. It fills me with joy. He's got a horrible whiny voice. He sang one of the worst Bond theme songs against the competition. And it was one that nobody had. Anyhow, Sam Smith was the guy who came out as gay, then as genderqueer, and then as non-binary, or look at me.
Or look at me.
It's coming out as
That's what it should be called. It should be called coming out as look at me. What the fuck is non-binary?
So he came out as looking, and then a bit later he wanted more attention. He posted a photo of himself in his mansion saying how difficult he was finding COVID, and just there was a complete lack of empathy. And I think that's a good sign, because that's if at best we're all going to see a massive decline in our living standards and our whole societies have got mass unemployment and so on, then I thought, well, at least we'll hear a bit less from those guys. And then several things happened. The first was that some people started doing things along the following lines. As you know, massive crowds, I do each of these in turn: gay, women, that is, between the sexes, race, and I noticed that the women thing came up. People started saying things like, women are suffering most from COVID. And I thought, well, okay, we've got to look at the stats on this. And then the stats came in and it showed that men were disproportionately likely to die. And then the same people said, well, the men might be doing the dying, but the women are doing the suffering or something. And that didn't make very much sense. It showed that there were some people who needed to look at this through the prism they've looked through everything, which is women, men, disproportionate relationships. And then you've got some people doing that with gay. The BBC in my own country has written quite a lot of pieces about it. It's difficult for a lot of LGBT people because they're living with their families who might be homophobic. And again, you spread these stories. Well, yeah, a lot of people are living with their families for their families. They're having to live with their mum and dad, and they might be heterosexual, and they're just be forced into casts by government regulations. You know what I mean? It's difficult. Why do we need to single that out? Then there was a story about somebody who, I kid you not, by the way, I love this one. The BBC had a story which was of a trans person who said, the headline was, I'm fearful that I'm going to be buried with the wrong gender. And of course, I just thought, well, a lot of us are just fearful of being buried, period.
Yeah, please call me a woman when I'm dead. I don't give a fuck.
You can misgender me all you like. I don't want to be buried. That's not
so crazy.
Not this year.
Oh.
Not this year.
There's so much nonsense.
So that sort of thing started happening. I thought, oh, this is they're just. But again, I still thought they'll double down, but the majority won't listen to them. Then the race came out with a vengeance. And that had been happening through COVID, obviously, because in all of our countries we had this thing on ethnic minorities, black people suffering disproportionately from the virus. And what I was worried about was that in the American media and the British media and elsewhere, this was being portrayed as if this was the case, and it doesn't, then it was because like America couldn't even import the virus from China without giving it its own special racist spin. You know, that all of the things you could look at to explain why there might be a high mortality rate, including higher numbers of nurses in the health service, underlying health issues, and much more. That wasn't being portrayed. It kept on being portrayed as if this could only be because of racism. And that just worried me, because I thought even a virus, a pandemic, can't bring us together. And we still have these people doing this. But as I say, it wasn't until after Minnesota that then that really took off, and we discovered something very important, which is that racism and the whole issue of race is even more important than trying to avoid the pandemic. And that and everything that's flowed from it is just rolling on and on. And it's very, very worrying. It's everything I feared would happen, which was everybody doubling down on these identity traits in the era when we all hoped we could move beyond it. You know,
we also got to collectively ignore the fact that having 50,000 people marching through the streets arm-in-arm is easily spreading. There's this giant uptick of the disease in America, and everyone stuffed their head in the sand and pretended they were not connected. Everyone wanted to pretend. Well, it had nothing to do with the protest. Well, if you
even more,
it's clear.
Even more. It wasn't just head in the sand. It was actually saying we don't mind. I mean, the medical professionals in America who signed a joint letter defending people going out on the protests were saying that racism kills, and so does COVID, but racism is clearly a bigger underlying risk than COVID. And if you've taken that view, then everything's possible, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, apart from the fact that it's clearly not true, because however you would, work out the numbers of people killed by racism, which does exist, but I mean, to claim that the mortality rates from racism are higher than those from COVID, when what are the figures in America now? 6 figures of people who died. 190,000. Surely the people who claim that racism kills more people than COVID should have to answer and say, where are the 190,000 racist murders in America this year? And that doesn't happen. And that's medical professionals saying that.
Well, you've got everyone terrified of being labeled as a racist. That's where we've gotten to this point, how we've gotten to this point.
Yeah. Well, we live in an era where all of the worst things you can be accused of are also not provable and not disprovable. Yeah. And that's something I say in the Madness of Crowds, which is just very difficult for us. It happens every day to someone. Someone gets called the whole charge sheet, they're homophobe, transphobe, misogynist, racist. And first of all, obviously people can level that without any evidence, and often knowing that it's not true. But the problem is the person who is said to has no defense, because you cannot actually prove you're not a racist. You can't prove you're not a misogynist. You can't prove you're not a homophobe. It happens all the time. People say, I'm not a homophobe. It happened with the former Australian Prime Minister the other day. I'm not a homophobe. My sister-in-law's a lesbian, and she married her partner, and I was at the wedding. But they still say he's a homophobe. You can't prove that the claim isn't true. And the worst of that is obviously with racism. And so obviously, everybody in the era is trying desperately to avoid the claim. Because once the claim is made, our society has no way to brush it off.
Yeah, I've been having conversations lately with people about the term hate speech. And it brings me back to a conversation that I had with someone who worked for YouTube. This was just randomly at a party. I happened to be with someone who worked for YouTube, and I was talking to them about some of the problems with YouTube and suppression. Particularly at the time, there was a person who had taken a conversation with you and Sam Harris, and they had put it on their playlist. I believe I talked to you about this, did I not?
Yeah.
They put it on their playlist, and they got a flag for violating the community guidelines just from putting that conversation with you and Sam Harris, I brought this up to her, and she immediately, dismissively said, well, that was because it's hate speech. And so then I got upset. I had a couple glasses of wine in me, and I was like, wait a minute. Why do you just say, tell me what was the content of the conversation? Why do you, and my wife is squeezing my leg under the table because she thinks I'm about to go ballistic. I'm like, how can you just flippantly say this is hate speech? You're talking about two public intellectuals who are discussing all sorts of intricate and nuanced issues, and you're just saying it's hate speech, and that you're justifying a community guideline strike on this person's channel who just had it on their playlist. Like, this is an interesting conversation that I enjoyed. I'm going to put this in my playlist. Whether I agree or disagree, it inspired thought.
Yeah, but this is one of the most sinister things of the time, as you know. I mean,